You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm George Cedarquist, joined this week by Oliver Camacho, Matt Cummings, and Weston Williams. All right, in this episode, Hertz, Mahomes, Ramey, Lanza. We handicap Philly and KC based on their hustle on the opera stage. And then the gold paint is still wet on Sunday night's trophies. Viola Davis is EGOTted, and Beyonce has finally won more Grammys than Sir George Solti. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, I would do anything for the Villa Verdi, but I won't do that. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Stitcher and Spotify, you're going to click follow. Apple Podcasts, just hit the plus sign. Send us that voice memo. Email us your hot takes about what we're talking on, operaboxscore@gmail.com. You're going to get the OBS beer coaster and the OBS lapel pin just for sharing your own hot take. Oliver Camacho, happy Monday. Great to see you.
Great to be seen. What's going on with West Virginia? I thought we were going to hear from West Virginia today. You're making them wait until after the Super Bowl. I get it. That makes sense.
Yes. All in good time. All in good time, West Virginia.
You don't want to give West Virginia too much attention. I always have said that.
Get lost in those country roads.
You give them an inch and they'll take a country mile or something. Weston Williams calling an audible.
Oh, yes. Here, reporting live from the Alexander Graham Bell booth. We're having a bit of a technical issue, which hopefully none of you will know if I've done my job right in the post-editing.
Yeah,
but
baby.
Right now, I've got a very long string in a cup to make this call work.
So really, it's more like Weston Williams calling in,
There
audible.
we go.
There it is.
Of course, the NFL Pro Bowl was on Sunday.
Wait a second. You didn't welcome Matt Cummings. Hello.
I just like to sneak my way in there. Don't give me too much attention. I'm the opposite of West Virginia.
The NFL Pro Bowl was the non-entity that, of course, everybody knew it would be, even though it was flag football.
Was there some high jumping?
There was some dodgeball. I don't know if that's exciting. The real fun over the weekend was on Saturday, which was the NHL All-Star Game. How could I have forgotten about that? It was in Florida. Just do yourself a favor and look up the jerseys that the two conferences wore at the NHL All-Star Game. Your eyes are going to bleed with the coloring of those jerseys.
That doesn't sound good.
No, it was dreadful. Let's talk some opera.
Chalk Talk on Opera Box Score.
Super Bowl LVII, or 57, kicks off this Sunday in Arizona between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. So we've broken down this match into like 5 opera categories. No, we're not going to predict a winner. Don't worry. But we are going to figure out which city has more opera power. And of course, we're just going to hate on Philadelphia fans in general. So Oliver, what were the metrics that we were dealing with here?
Well, like we do every year, we're trying to predict the Super Bowl winner based on what that city has to offer in terms of opera. What are their venues? What are the performance opportunities for both the audiences and the artists? What are some of the training opportunities? And who are some of the city's native opera creators? And there'd be bonus points if the town in question is actually in the scenario of an opera or is mentioned in an opera, like New Orleans in Manon Lescaut, for example.
Yes, the classic desert of New Orleans where everyone goes to die of thirst.
So I guess we should take it. We should go head to head on venues. As a fan of Opera Philadelphia, I can tell you that the Academy of Music.
So you're going to do Philadelphia with Weston. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So the teams are Oliver and Weston, our team Philly, and George and Matt, our team KC.
Here we go.
And as an Opera Philadelphia fan, I can tell you that the Academy of Music, the home of Opera Philadelphia, is actually the oldest opera house in the U.S., built in 1855.
Dang.
It's a beautiful venue, beautiful
the
red
oldest
velvet
opera
on the
house
seats.
that's still used as an opera house specifically. There are some that are older that have not done opera in a long time, but this is still used as an opera house, which is really significant.
Yes. And there are other venues, actually, when you go to the O Festival, they create like a sort of a campus in the downtown area of places that you can see opera of various sizes. But I have to give it to the Academy of Music for just being a gorgeous place to be.
All right, Matt, what do we got on the Kansas City side? And hey, people, it's in Missouri, all right? We're talking about the Missouri side.
Don't even know what state it's in.
I don't know if you know this, but it is famously said that everything is up to date in Kansas City, and that definitely has to do with its performance venues. That's what that's what Oscar Hammerstein was referring to 75 years ahead of the construction of the wonderful, the glorious Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts, which is home to none other than the Lyric Opera of Kansas City. The Kaufman Center has been the home of the company since 2011, after it had to bounce around from venue to venue due to a number of opera houses in the city of Kansas City that have burned down. Like, it's more than two. It's it. But their current home is an 1,800-seat theater that's both intimate and visually striking, with state-of-the-art acoustics and sightlines.
It sort of looks like the Sydney Opera House had gone all melty.
Yeah, it was built because it's right next to the Central Business District in Kansas City, but it's facing away from that neighborhood, so they wanted it to like kind of look good from all angles, and so they went with this very modern design that shone from all angles. But what's really interesting is that inside the theater, the seats are kind of in a semicircle around the stage, which is what's known as vineyard style, which means that the audiences are a lot closer to the performers than they would be under a typical proscenium stage. And they also are, up in those fancy houses like the Metropolitan Opera in New York, where the super titles are not projected above the screen as an eyesore, distracting you.
Gross.
Rather, they're on the back of the seat in front of you.
Are they really? They got the back of the seat titles.
They do. Yeah, the
That's
center
kind
is
of like flying priority economy.
Exactly. The house is really committed to accessibility, and so they've tried to remove stairs where they're not necessary and any kind of barriers to entry for the community to be able to come in and enjoy the wonderful Lyric Opera of Kansas City.
All right. Well, that round kind of sounds like a tie, don't you think, guys?
Well, we also have in Philadelphia the Kimmel Center, which has the Miller Theater. And I actually forget the name of the smaller theater where I saw Semele.
But you don't get credit for it. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
No, but it's one of those like modern buildings that has the ability to do both Broadway shows and like orchestral concerts and chamber opera. And the chamber opera venue actually has a beautiful acoustic, much like I'm sure the Kaufman Center's whatever.
I mean, you can wish.
But it's just footsteps away from the Academy. So, there might be a night of 3 operas that you just do a moving feast, like a progressive dinner of opera.
Amazing.
Right there. Yeah. That'd be a good idea. Opera Philadelphia.
That'd be cool. So then what are our second metric, the performance opportunities for audiences and artists? So this is the companies, right? This is the meat and the potatoes. We're going to get to training grounds in a second. What's Philadelphia have on offer?
Well, I have to say that one of the great things about Philadelphia is that we have Opera Philadelphia.
Who's
but we also,
we, by the way?
Weston and I.
You're Chicago, man.
We as Team Philadelphia, the loosely defined royal we.
Yes.
But just blocks away from Opera Philadelphia's home, you can go to the campuses of the Academy of Vocal Arts and Curtis Institute and hear the highest level emerging artists. Literally singers like, Michael Fabiano or Alex Schrader or plenty of people who came out of AVA, like Eileen Perez came out of there. Ruth Ann Swenson came out of there. We have one of yours, Joyce DiDonato, came out of there.
Hey, that's one of our girls.
Yeah, you don't get credit for her.
Yeah, no, that doesn't count.
And also, the Curtis Institute as well, you have just an insane list of alumni. You've got Samuel Barber, Giancarlo Menotti, Leonard Bernstein, Juan Diego Flores, Rose Bampton, Eric Owens, Ned Rorem, Anna Moffo,
Jeez.
Pavo Yervi,
Yeah, I was gonna deduct if you didn't bring up Anna Moffo, so good job.
Jennifer Higdon. Like this, like literally, I was going through like a list of just the notable alumni that I could find like on Wikipedia, like the basics, and it was so long. I was cutting people left and right. It is an absolutely ludicrous. Not only can you go and see great music now, you could step in a time machine and see any number of the greatest opera artists in American history at any time between the Curtis Institute and the AVA over the past century. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, Philadelphia has always been a great town for the history of opera. It's very much you saw like a lot of the first American performances of a lot of Mozart operas, for example. Don Giovanni, Marriage of Figaro premiered in America in Philadelphia. They premiered the first American grand opera in 1845, which is William Henry Fry's Leonora. So
Yes, that
really
was
at any
Chestnut.
point in history, you are going to get the best opera that America has to offer. It really is that city.
But also we should say that Opera Philadelphia offers such incredible things for Philadelphia audiences, not just the O Festival, which is how many different events all crammed into 1 week in October or whatever it happens, or 2 weeks in
Yeah.
October. But they also have their Stagione, and this year you can hear a Margaret Bond's work called Credo juxtaposed with Carmina Burana. And then later you can see what I'm sure is the backwards Bohème. I think that's the one that they're doing.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
If you're doing it forwards, you're just behind, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't get me distracted on that. Matt, all right. Lyric Opera of Kansas City. That is our big one in the KC corner. Set it up for us. What's the history? Why is it so important?
Lyric Opera of Kansas City has been around since the mid-50s, since 1957, and it was a bit of a time capsule. It was an attempt to bring a kind of European stagione model to the American heartland, and really at its peak, they were doing this by rotating repertoire so that you were not just stuck with seeing one opera at a time. You know, it was really kind of the O Festival before the O Festival.
Thanks.
O Festival is just like trying to catch up with the Lyric Opera of Kansas City, where you could see 4 different operas within 1 week. And within its first decade, the company did more than 200 performances of 30 different works. It's also been it's had a long-standing commitment to presenting new works, doing premieres back as far back as the 1970s, really before that came totally into vogue in regional companies for sure. And that was with Captain Jinks and of the Horse Marines, an opera that they later made a recording of with RCA. And it's grown from a company that had a budget of about $34,000 in its first season to one with over $5 million.
Oof.
And it's just continually bringing high quality art to the denizens of Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas.
The other thing I was going to add for the city of Kansas City, besides having an Opera on Tap branch, which has many locations across our country, is also a little storefront theater company I came across called Landlocked Opera. Their website is super fresh, and I just love the name. We've talked about training opportunities, so let's do some name dropping.
Well, what are your training opportunities for? Because we know about Curtis and AVA. I mean, those are world class. You know, some of the best that American can produce.
UMKC, baby, University of Missouri, Kansas City, the conservatory.
Yeah, you're not
the
going to
training
get that
program.
kind of cookie cutter, just like generic American destined to be in the Met Finals out of UMKC. You know, this is a school that cares about the originality and artistic passions of its students.
A good friend of mine was just on the faculty there, actually. But I was looking at their website. Turns out that 2 of their master's students, Alana Garnier and David Sanchez, were both on the 2021 Grammy Award-winning recording from the Met of Porgy and Bess. We're going to talk about the Grammys later on in the show. I thought that was pretty cool. Let's get on to some really big names here. The Native Children.
Yeah, so lots of people have passed through Philadelphia, but how many of them can actually claim it as home?
Some people like Mario Lanza and Stephen Costello, that's just tenors. We have some of the greatest contraltos and mezzo-sopranos of all time, like Marian Anderson and Florence Quivar, and then the great Margaret Harshaw. And if you're looking for Wagnerian bass baritones, we have Eric Owens, not to mention composer Mark Blitzstein, and composer and librettist and friend of the show, Mark Adamo. And then one for Weston, not quite opera, but we got Milton Babbitt, one of ours.
that is a vibe.
That's a penalty flag.
I had to drop that one in there. I will also say I do have one extra penalty flag, perhaps. I want to mention Alexander Reinagel, who was English, but he was producing opera and ballets in conjunction with local composers in the United States as far back as the late 1790s in Philadelphia, which is truly extraordinary for U.S. opera.
Ink hadn't dried on the Declaration of Independence by that point.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
You're really into drying liquids on this episode.
I don't know what I don't know what it is.
Oh my god, you guys are gonna get us an explicit rating.
Here we go.
George Dry Liquid Cedarquist.
We're going to keep this short and sweet. Native children of Kansas City, Missouri. Here you go. Tenors Vincent Cole and Thomas Hayward.
Vincent Cole, who now teaches at the University of Missouri, Kansas
doubling
City.
down. Nice one, Matt. Composer Virgil Thompson. And we're going to expand the net a little bit here of KC and talk about some folks from the near suburbs. Joyce DiNanno from Prairie Village. James King from Dodge City. Sam Raimi from Colby,
Are all of those
Kansas.
suburbs of Kansas City? Not necessarily, but in the spirit of the American West, anything that's more or less 2 hours away counts as being close by.
I mean,
Joyce-
if it happened in Kansas, that's close enough.
Even Joyce Castle has deep ties to Kansas.
She still teaches at Kansas University in Lawrence, less than an hour from Kansas City.
And for folks in related professions to the arts, music, and sports, we're going to add Robert Altman, Walt Disney, Burt
You've heard of him.
Bacharach, John Kander, and Satchel
Kander
Paige.
and Ebb.
Wouldn't Walt Disney be a penalty flag? Or
No,
Because he's
no, no, no.
anti-Semitic?
Because of
No.
Disney Corporation. maybe.
Fantasia. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Philadelphia Orchestra's own Leopold Stokowski was good enough for him.
Oh,
Walt Disney, also a character in The Greatest American, Kansas City.
True.
Oh.
You got us
there. You go.
there.
Bonus points.
nice
Bonus
one.
points for Kansas.
Does
yeah.
Kansas City appear in that opera? I have no idea, but it does in theory.
All right. The last metric was bonus points for the town being a scenario of an opera.
We've already claimed ours, maybe. I'm counting it.
And I have a backup for Kansas City as well.
I wanted to say that, I was looking around for operas that took place in Philadelphia. I'm sure there are some. I was blanking in my own memory, but I'm sure any opera about colonial American history has at least one scene in Philadelphia. But I wanted to get another bonus point in because I wanted to say that noted Philadelphia luminary Benjamin Franklin invented the glass harmonica, which has made appearances in many operas for all of you George Benjamin / Donizetti stands out there like myself.
Okay, but he never
it is-
actually put the glass harmonica in the final version of that score, just saying.
Yikes.
I will
brutal.
say, I will walk out of a Lucia that does the flute substitution. Garbage stuff. Garbage.
We're going to flip it over to Kansas City. First of all, Kansas City is the city of fountains. Secondly, I'm just waiting for the cheer to go up there. Kansas City
Weston, edit that in, please.
is a sister city with Seville, Spain, and so we're going to count that
Ever heard of it?
as a connection for Barbara of Seville
And Carmen. Take
and
that.
Carmen.
Yeah, that tracks.
And as I've
Yeah,
said-
that's
Wow.
Everything there is up to date. We've come about as far as we can go.
well, there you have it, folks. I think with those data points, you're going to really be able to place a good bet this Sunday on that big game.
Bet on the glass harmonica, folks. It never fails.
Well, this is the year that I'm finally going to actually place a bet on the length of the national anthem, which is one of the very classic parlay bets that any bookie will take for the Super Bowl. And they give you like an average time, and then you decide if the actual anthem is going to be under or over that time.
Okay, here's our bonus point. I just realized. The movie Philadelphia, the Jonathan Demme movie Philadelphia. No, it's set in Philadelphia. You get some Maria Callas. You got some crying Tom Hanks.
It's very gay. That's I mean, you get bonus points just for representation.
Fair.
There you go.
Well, if you are a Philly fan or a Chiefs fan, let us know.
Or a biased Yinzer like me who just can't stand Philadelphia to get anything good.
Let us know what you think is the best part of opera in one of those cities. And you can do that by emailing us, operaboxscore@gmail.com. It's our Chalk Talk double header. Before we get into that super quick, I was writing with one of our listener mailbag correspondents, Woody from Virginia, and he said, I have
just
to
regular
admit,
Virginia, not West Virginia.
Just regular. He said, look, I have to admit that Philly sports fans are quite well balanced. For 6 months of the year, they drone on incessantly about the Phillies, and the other 6 months, they mention the Eagles in every single conversation. Ouch! Loved it. Oliver Camacho, the Grammy Awards were Sunday night. Those statues, they're just so unwieldy. What did I miss when I was in bed asleep or watching All Creatures Great and Small? What did I miss?
Aren't there like 90 awards that are given? I forgot. There's like an ungodly number of Grammys, but we'll talk about...
they certainly don't put the classical Grammys in prime time.
Yeah. We'll talk about 3 that are related to what we do here, beginning with vocal solo album. The nominees this year were Joyce DiDonato's environmentally conscious album called Eden, with the Baroque Orchestra Il Pomodoro, led by Maxim Emelianachev. And then mezzo-soprano Sasha Cook and pianist Kirill Kuzmin in the new commission art song album How Do I Find You. Nico Muhly's works for tenor called Stranger, the album with Nick Pon and The Knights and Brooklyn Rider, which are 2 string ensembles based out of, I guess, Brooklyn, and countertenor Reginald Mobley. And then Sean O'Peblo's album of reimagined spirituals as art songs, Lord, How Come I Here, which features Will Liverman and Janae Bridges with Paul Sanchez on piano. But the winner was Renee Fleming's The Anthropocene with Yannick Nézet-Séguin on piano, Voice of Nature. So there were actually 2 environmental albums in the running. And Renee, she now has 7 or she now has 6?
She now has 6.
Okay.
Not as many as Beyonce or George Solti, R.I.P.
Yeah.
I will say this segment was kind of interesting. Like, that was of every single. I really love all the albums in this category. The only one I hadn't heard was the winner. I thought it was going to go to the Sean O'Peblo because it's a great album. It's very relevant for the moment, I think. And not to say that the Anthropocene isn't relevant. I think it is, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting this one to be the one that pulled out of this particular category.
Yeah, and I forget if it was last year, 2 years ago, they gave it to Hilla Plittman, the Mythologies album. She's like the husband of Eric, or the wife of Eric Whittaker.
Yeah, Mrs. Whittaker.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the year before, I don't know, they just seem to always drop the ball on like what could be something that would get people interested in, this. I mean, the fact that they're nominated is great, but Renee Fleming, she's doing fine. She doesn't need a Grammy,
Right.
But maybe that's not what the people who are voting are thinking about. Like, how can I be an agent of whatever change or an agent of...
They're thinking how they can make money. That's what awards ceremonies
the Grammy
about.
voters? The Grammy voters?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
That's
what they want to do is make money.
Bizarre choices,
I do think
typically.
that, the way the way they choose, especially for the classical categories where, you know, most of the people who are voting in the Grammys don't care. It's interesting to me because I feel like the opera recordings are usually very easy to predict who will win. But once you go beyond that, it is an absolute crapshoot. It could be anything.
So we'll touch briefly on the choral album winner, which was Donald Nally, who has ties to Chicago, and there's some singers featured on this.
Oh, like half the Chicago choral scenes on this.
Yeah. Donald Nally, the conductor and founder of Philadelphia's The Crossing.
Not opera doesn't count. You do not get extra credit.
For the album called Born, which beat out the Verdi Requiem Met Remembers 9/11, which we talked about extensively here when that performance happened, and a John Elliott Gardner-led St. John Passion, which is a surprise, but that is actually...
And that's a great recording.
I feel like that is what I'm talking about. Like, give it to something that's interesting, that's going to draw people to repertoire that they may not be familiar with.
And the repertoire on that album is like incredible. That the title piece, Born, the Michael Gilbertson, is like 10 minutes of just an absolute banger.
So the big category for us obviously is Best Opera Recording.
Right.
There were only 3 in the running this year, not like the Oscars where you get 10. There was The Life and Times of Malcolm X from our friends Odyssey Opera.
Yeah.
Matthew O'Coin, friend of the show's Eurydice, which was once again an HD performance. And the winner, Terrence Blanchard's Fire Shut Up in My Bones.
Yeah.
Also from the Met, which is once again just an HD deal. And I'm very happy about that. We are in the Blanchissance right now. And I'm happy that this opera is getting as much attention as it is. But it's frustrating for people like me who, really enjoy listening to recordings and revisiting them. And how are you supposed to access this thing? How are you supposed to judge it, How can anybody find
like
it?
an album? It's not released as
you
an
can get
album,
maybe
just
get a
as-
Blu-ray if you have a Blu-ray player.
Was it even? I guess it was released on DVD or whatever, but I'm not sure. I mean,
I think you have to
is
pay
it
for
even necessarily
HD.
a prerequisite? Yeah, I was like, can you even buy a physical copy of this? That's actually a good question.
Maybe in the Met gift shop, but I doubt anywhere else.
Yeah.
I've had this rant before, obviously, but I think that there should be 2 categories. There needs to be an opera or an opera recording category that's just audio, and there needs to be, it's kind of like the equivalent of like a music video and a traditional album, right? You judge them on 2 different criteria. I know at least for me, even if I'm going to listen to audio that's been ripped from like a record, like a live in HD recording, kind of like Akhenaten was last year, like I'm going to it for something different. It's not the same experience. And like we talked with Gil Rose a few weeks ago, the importance of really maintaining a robust recorded industry, because that's how most people consume music. And I think it's a great disadvantage for classical music, and especially opera, to rely on these film productions when most people are listening just on their headphones,
Right. I don't think other categories that win Grammys, can win a Grammy based on what they offer. And like, if Harry Styles' music video doesn't win a Grammy Award, it's the record that wins Grammy Award.
Those are the VMAs, right? It's a completely separate award.
Yeah, and it's just an entirely different comparison. I agree with you. Like between an engineered studio recording where it's not necessarily it's not a replication of just a live performance, like it's its own art form, versus like live audio. I often love listening to it as its own thing. Like it's like there's so much excitement. You get to hear like the actual blood pumping through the performance in a way that doesn't always come through the studio recording. But like it's not you're not comparing apples and apples.
Yeah.
Who would literally accept the trophy from the Met when Fire Shut Up in My Bones?
Peter
wins?
Gelb.
Okay. Seriously.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, where? First of all, where is the ceremony held? Is it Los Angeles?
I guess. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I was
assume
curious. So. I guess I just want to know about the logistics. Like, how does it all how does it all work? But
Yeah.
you know what, George? You can just watch it on TV.
Yeah, you can look
Wow.
it up. You can ask Google. So
That was quite the roster. I need a Philly cheesesteak. I'm so hungry.
Oh, me too.
Only then can our country be saved. Behind Providence, furious struggles broke out. Struggle. Turn the goddamn power! The shepherd drives the wolf away from the folds of his flock.
Oh my gosh, Weston, the Grammys have got you so agitated. Why don't you just take a lap and you can come back for good call, bad call. We're going to push on with the 2-minute drill.
This just in. The 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
Alexander Pereira, the intendant of Florence's Maggio Musicale, is under investigation for embezzlement regarding expenses incurred and charged to the opera. Pereira said, "I will reiterate and clarify what I have always maintained in every forum. These expenses are all connected and necessary for the exercise of my mandate as superintendent and artistic director of the Maggio Musicale Fiorentino."
opera houses across Italy have come together in a bid to keep Verdi's country house open to the public. Villa Verdi in Sant'Agata di Villanova was put up for sale in October after a long-running squabble among his heirs. The government allocated 20 million euros for the purchase of the home, which it intends to use as a museum in its 2023 budget. The culture minister, Gennaro Sangiuliano, said it was, quote, the duty of the Republic to honor the memory of Verdi.
Welsh National Opera will expand Wellness with WNO, its community health program, to combat the effects of long COVID. The program shares techniques and strategies used by opera singers to support breath control, lung function, circulation, and posture. Participant Gabby Curley said, "You don't have to be a good singer at all. I now have the confidence to sing out loud and not be conscious of whether I'm singing in tune, simply because I know how much it can help."
French mezzo-soprano Katia Ledoux made history at the Vienna Volksopera last month when she stepped in for an ailing colleague in Offenbach's operetta Orpheus in the Underworld. Tenor Daniel Kluge, cast as Orpheus, had fallen ill and pulled out of a performance. Ledoux played both the soprano role of Venus and the title role of the Underworld. No, presumably of Orpheus. Following in the footsteps of Jesse Norman and Shirley Verrett, who brought Les Troyens to the masses, doing the same.
Early thirst warning. Academy Award nominated actor and Prawn Cocktail Crisps fan Paul Mescal will star as Don Jose in an upcoming film adaptation of Carmen. The title character is played by In the Heights star Melissa Barrera, and the film is directed by Benjamin Millipede. A theatrical release is set for April, blah, blah, blah. No disrespect, just give me all the scenes with my Connell and as little clothing as necessary. Target audience nailed it.
Prawn Cocktail Crisps. The Houston Grand Opera has announced the winners of its 2023 Concert of Arias, judged by HGO CEO Corey Dastor, Grammy Award-winning mezzo-soprano Isabel Leonard, and HGO Artistic and Music Director Patrick Summers. The first place winner was mezzo-soprano Natalie Lewis, who sang arias from Britten's The Rape of Lucretia and Donizetti's La Favorite. She also won the Online Viewers' Choice Award.
Strasbourg's Opéra Nationale du Rhin has announced financially motivated modifications to its current season. 2 planned stage performances of The Tales of the Tsar Zoltan by Rimsky-Korsakov will be replaced by a single concert version of that opera. The company will also limit the number of performances of The Coronation of Poppaea. The company, supported primarily by public funding, has an annual operating budget of 23 million euros.
In trade news, or in this case no news, the Philadelphia Orchestra and its musical leader Yannick Nézet-Séguin have agreed to a contract extension, keeping the conductor at the helm of the ensemble at least through the 2029-30 season. Nézet-Séguin was already in the middle of a deal lasting through 2025-26. He will become music and artistic director under the new contract.
Megan Steinbach Smallwood has been named interim general director of Chicago Opera Theater following the departure of friend of the show Ashley Magnus, who served COT for 7.5 years including being in the top job since January 2019. Magnus returns to Southwest Michigan, where she and her husband opened the River Trade Brewing Company.
And on this day, February 6th in 1801, it was the birth of soprano Laura Cinti Damoreau in Paris. She was the muse of bel canto and opera comique composers alike, creating roles such as Isabella in Meyerbeer's Robert le Diable, Matilda in William Tell, Countess Adela in Comte Ory, just two of her Rossini originals, and Angèle in Auber's Le Domino Noir. In 1813, it was the first performance of Rossini's Tancredi at La Fenice. In 1830, the first performance of I Pazzi per Progetto of Donizetti premiered in Naples. In 1845, another Donizetti premiered, Dom Sebastian von Portugal, which was a revision, premiered in Vienna. In 1887, baritone Richard Bonelli was born in Port Byron, New York. 1898 saw the birth of German soprano Erna Zach, who created the role of Isotta in Strauss's Die Schweigsame Frau. In 1915, Leoncavallo's opera La Candidata premiered in Rome. Happy birthday to British conductor and bass Matthew Best, founder of the Corridon Singers. In 1959, Francis Poulenc's opera La Voix Humaine premiered at the Opera Comique. And in 1976, it was the first performance of John LaMontagne's opera Be Glad Then, America, in honor of the American Bicentennial Celebration in 1976. The opera was conducted by Sarah Caldwell and starred folk singer Odetta as the muse for America.
And that's your 2-minute drill.
That little ditty was once one of the most popular songs in all Europe. That was Di Tanti Palpiti from the aforementioned Tancredi by Rossini and Teresa Berganza singing the aria.
I'm just surprised Leoncavallo wrote other stuff besides Pagliacci. Am I like the last person to
Someone's
figure
never
that
heard
out?
the Leoncavallo Bohème in its shows.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of Leoncavallo music, and
That's
you
done
shouldn't-
with any regularity, though?
Well, no, but don't let the straitjacket of standard canon limit your horizons, George.
Yeah.
I thought
Yes,
you were a
because we
director.
all want to see Leoncavallo's Bohème. And then there
Wow.
was silence.
No, but have you heard it?
There is silence.
We're stunned at how narrow your horizons
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, you're a gatekeeper for Puccini, so.
Hey, just don't do it backwards. We're going to work backwards here, actually. I love the
How
idea
the tables have
that
turned.
Ashley Magnus is leaving COT. First of all, I think she's done great work there. Second of all, so I don't love that she's leaving. What I do love is that she's going back, I believe, home to Southwest Michigan to run a brewery.
That's the obvious next step for most intendants.
I
To
guess
drink more.
I just, really take the pain away. I just
Alexandra
like
Pereira is going to be taking that method.
beer and I
probably.
like opera. I just think that's like the perfect next step. And I wish her all the best. Cheers. The Villa Verdi. I cannot tell you how tired I am of hearing about the Villa Verdi.
I feel like there's more than one, so I feel like there's Casa Verdi too.
Yeah,
And-
that's the retirement home. This is the
Yeah.
house where he lived. And so apparently what's going on here is that the country has rights of first refusal on this house, which they want to buy to turn into a museum. And it's set to go to auction, and the auction is going to start at 30 million euros. And they only have 20 million euros budgeted. So they told all of the opera houses in the country that they need to do more Verdi to raise more money so that they can afford to buy this when it goes up for auction
It's like,
and not lose it to some private equity vulture capitalist.
man, they never make it simple, do they?
Did you see the White Lotus?
Yeah, they could set that at the Villa Verdi.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, but it's like there's all this great real estate in old Europe and let's say Italy but nobody has any money to like maintain it or to actually like keep it going, you know. So people with plenty of like those types of assets, but not cash flow, is what we learned from the White Lotus. That's why I
Or
brought it
House
up,
of
so.
Gucci.
Okay.
If you could make it through that
Gucci.
that movie, which was something.
I don't know Orpheus in the Underworld that well, the Offenbach show. So
Nor do you know the Cavallo operas
no, I'm really exposing
or Handel operas for that matter.
That is absolutely true. So, like, just how much of a challenge would it be for Katya Ledoux?
I mean, it's operetta. It's not like the incredible Shirley Barrett having to sing
For 5
Cassandra
hours.
as
Troyenne,
yeah.
And I do
Yeah.
know Troyenne.
But just the fact that she had the musicianship to do it, I don't know if she
To
had
learn
to
it in
use-
like 2 days.
Yeah, if she had to use a score. I mean, I don't know if the Venus role is that long, but just that's a really odd situation. Like there's no understudy and there's not like a young artist program like we have here in the US. Everybody has a young artist program. So there's somebody in the wings that's like waiting for their chance for something like this to happen, you know?
I mean,
it's
it's
just like a
Vienna.
weird...
You would think that there's some tenor somewhere who would be able to step in.
Right. Especially at the Volksoper, too, right? Like, this is their bread and butter. It seems odd that they would not be prepared to put in a sub.
Maybe they're trying to do like the Peter Gelb thing where they create a star by, making these artificial circumstances where somebody, like the whole Christina Opalace situation, for example.
Hey, maybe
Oh, and that worked out so well for everyone.
maybe this is the next big thing, though, right? Is all of a sudden we're going to be starting to have, singers crossing vocal parts, and that's going to be a selling point. Kind of an interesting idea.
I just wanted to bring up, before we wrap up this episode, this movie of Carmen. I didn't know that anybody was asking for a movie of Carmen and casting somebody who's not even a singer. I don't know, maybe Paul Mescal sings. I have no idea how that's going to work, if he's going to be voiced by
He's going to
somebody
be
that's...
dubbing Harry Belafonte. That was a Carmen Jones deep cut for all of you.
Yeah,
You
I
Dorothy
bet.
Dandridge stands out there.
Saw what you did
Which
there.
actually Marilyn Horne sang. in
Yeah,
Dorothy
that's
Did,
true.
yeah.
She sure did.
But anyway, Paul Mescal is so of the moment type of beautiful. I don't know if he was beautiful in the 90s, if the exact same type of person was in the 90s or in the aughts, but he's just like the gorgeous man of the moment.
Isn't
And
the director, isn't he
I
also a
stand.
choreographer as well?
Yep, Benjamin Millipede, yeah.
Yeah.
and he's married to Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
Well, then he can do no wrong.
Anyway,
he's the guy in Black Swan who says he doesn't want to sleep with her, and it's funny because they're married. There's a little Easter egg for you next time you watch my favorite Christmas movie, Black Swan.
Not gonna happen. I don't think I'm gonna be watching this Carmen either, quite frankly. And on that note, Crabby George is gonna go to Good Call, Bad Call.
Good call, bad call on Opera Box Score.
Time to wrap up the pod. Good Call, Bad Call. Oliver Camacho.
last week we did actually get to hear Juan Diego Flores, despite him canceling his DC and Carnegie Hall recitals. He made it to Chicago and he sang a very unusual program, which was basically the history of Italian opera with some French arias thrown in for good mix, but really not a lot of hits, not a lot of things like, I recognize that. But he saved all the hits for the end, and he came out after a very long program with a footstool and a guitar, and he started taking requests from the audience. People just started shouting out.
Phenomenal.
I have never seen
you
an
are making
audience
that
like
up.
this. Like
Not making
people
it up.
waving Peruvian flags at him.
And then
He was so overcome, not making it up.
and then
That's so
he put the
funny.
guitar away and came back out one more time, even though everybody was clearly heading for the doors. at their coats on.
jeez.
He came out for one last encore, which, to my surprise,
People kept
was-
asking for Granada, and he would go, "No, not doing that one."
He sang Nessun Dorma,
Exactly.
My Lord.
which was completely implausible,
Jesus.
but adorable. So
You always
thank
leave,
you, Juan Diego.
leave him wanting more, Juan. Cummings, was that also your good call back?
That was a tag team good call. I love
Okay.
him. I've loved him for years. It was so great to see him live again.
I mean, really, really great legato, really intelligent phrasing. Not so much coloratura anymore. He didn't really do anything that type of flashy, but there were still high notes galore. So,
Weston Williams.
My good call is future Grammy nominee, unless the Met Live in HD series eats up all the nominations again. This is the new album from Haymarket Opera here in Chicago of
friends of the show,
Saint-Georges. Yeah, friend of the show. This is Joseph Ballon's premiere recording of his opera, The Anonymous Lover. With period instruments. You may remember, dear listeners, that I attempted to get tickets for the show, but it was completely and totally sold out. So I'm really glad I'm able to finally hear it. And it's such a historic recording of a composer who is really finally coming back into public consciousness. And I'm just really, really excited about it.
And it stars Nicole Cabell.
Yeah.
Fun. I got a good call as well. There's a great article in the Santa Fe New Mexican newspaper online featuring Opera Southwest artistic and general director and conductor, friend of the show, Anthony Barrese. It's a great article. We'll put a link to it on the website. I love his headshot. You know, when you look at conductors' headshots, first of all, there's always like a baton in the way. And second of all, they look so darn serious. This is a compliment to Tony. He looks like a guy that you just want to hang out with. I just love that.
And he's
headshot.
he's holding a score, presumably of a Rossini opera on his lap.
I would hope so.
And, and he's wearing just his concert blacks. No tuxedo, no pretentious.
No, man, none of that. None of that. Just straight up. Straight up.
Yeah.
That is it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Send us that voice memo or email us your hot takes, operaboxscore@gmail.com. And you can find links to stuff we've talked about at our website, operaboxscore.com. That's also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to the OBS on our donate page. Your announcer is Norm Waddell. Your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho. And your audio editor is Weston Williams. For co-host Matt Cummings, I'm George Cedarquist, asking you to continue the conversation about opera while you create a masterpiece barbecue sauce. We're back with an all-new show next week when tenor Andrew Morstein goes inside the huddle. Plus, you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more Grammys than George Solti. Join us.